disciplinary or legal action if such allegations are proved to be found, or is it a case that we should all be walking around with tape recorders?
Okay, well, first of all, we have done quite a lot in that year, and we have been doing a lot for the 2 years I've been here to continue to transform the culture of the Met. If you remember when I got here, I said three things. I want to cut crime, cut costs, and continue to develop the culture. And we have been doing a huge amount on that. Part of that is included that we've had 50% more officers dismissed since I arrived. I'm not proud of that. I think it's something that's important to set high standards, and we said we would, and we are maintaining that. There's no doubt that it's unfortunate this incident has taken too long to resolve. I accept that entirely. There are complications, which I'm afraid it's difficult to go into. And the only final thing I try and reassure you is that the organisation itself is helping by actually identifying where it thinks things are wrong. So we've had a 25% increase, a quarter increase, in the number of internal complaints.
Hold on, Andy. Let the Commissioner. We'll come back in. Back to you, Sir Bernard. Sorry.
Yeah, in the number of internal complaints that we've actually about bad behaviour, and we've taken action on that. We do put a lot of resources into investigating our own staff. And the only final thing I'll say, Andy, is that, of course, it's supervised a process by the Independent Police Complaints Commission. I don't criticise that. What it does mean is because they're involved, and sometimes the Crown Prosecution Service, it gets long. Because we have to carry out an investigation, file to IPCC sometimes, and sometimes CPS. So some of the investigations do get very long, which I think doesn't help public trust.
Andy?
Yeah. The point that I wanted to make is I come from a community where these sort of complaints about lying in particular, because I understand that you say a lot of police officers have been dismissed for various reasons. But my question is more about police officers who lie, because the only time they seem to get caught out is when somebody has recorded the action. Now, if the Prime Minister says that they should apologise, the Home Secretary thinks there should be disciplinary action, and the IPCC questions the honesty and the integrity of the police officers, there is a problem here. And it's about what you do with police officers who are lying, not generally, because a lot of people have been fitted up by police officers, not only cabinet ministers. This story's been going on for... What can we say? A lot of people have been making...
Well, you could go back, I think it was at the Birmingham 6. You could also talk about Hillsborough. There are other incidents. Let's get the Commissioner back onto that. Commissioner?
I think, Andy, from time to time there have been cases where police officers have been accused and found to be lying. There are human beings there, and there's going to occasionally be criminals. So I'm not going to say that everybody's perfect. That's clearly not true. I think the vast majority of police officers, 99% of them, are excellent people. That is my view. But what we've got to be resolute and alert to the possibility that some of them aren't. So what we do is to have investigations. We are one of the few organisations that have our own proactive units. So we look for corrupt officers. We don't wait for public complaints. If we get them, we'll investigate them. I think people sometimes think because the police investigate themselves, it's not thorough. My experience is it's very thorough. But I think until the IPCC have got all the resources they need, and they will over these coming years, to investigate every complaint, then I can understand why sometimes the public thinks that the police investigating themselves does not reassure.
Just staying with Plebgate, as it's called, Commissioner, you may recall at the back end of last year, December, you came in and I asked you about Plebgate and what you'd seen so far. You told me this.
Well, the only thing I can say is there's nothing I've seen in this fresh information that causes me to doubt that original account.
Do you still stand by that and what the officers put in the log?
I think that was said, within days of having some new information. So the only thing I can say, I think we've really now got to wait until the outcome of this investigation. I think that won't be too long, I hope. The file, as we've said, is with the Crown Prosecution Service. There'll then be an independent assessment by the Independent Police Complaints Commission together with the Met. I think at the end of that, then we have to wait and see what it finds. And if it finds that officers have either committed a crime or have been carried out any misconduct, you can be sure that I will, as I said at the time as well, be ruthless in getting to the bottom of it.
So you've still not seen anything that makes you differ or go away from what the officers reported?
Well, no, I'm not saying that really, Nick. What I'm saying
you said that in December, Commissioner.
No, but what I'm saying is I haven't seen, I've not been running the investigation. That's been kept quite separate, quite properly. So until that investigation, the investigation is now complete, I haven't seen the file at the end of it. So really, I can't say that I've seen anything positive or negative, only that I'm waiting to hear the outcome of the Crown Prosecution Service charging decision about any crime.
Do you have any sense when that might be?
Sorry?
Do you have any sense when that might be?
I don't. We're hoping it's relatively quickly because, as you said, it's taken a long time already. But we have to leave them time to make that decision.
How damaged has the confidence in the police been by Plebgate?
There's no doubt. The fact that we're talking about it today in front of 8.4 million people, or as many people as listen to you,
Near enough,
makes it a significant issue. And of course, it would be better it's resolved quickly. So I'm not going to sit here and say, I think this is a low priority thing. It's a very high priority thing. We want to get to the end of it. It's certainly not helping. The irony is, during the time that we've been, this has been an issue, the Met has been performing better than ever.
But that's clouded, isn't it, Sir
It's
Bernard?
clouded.
It's difficult to get that, as you will know, as the boss.
We just got to live with the reality of that. The newspaper headlines, the fact that you're talking about it today, clouds the fact that crime's coming down is at its fastest for 30 years. But who knows? Who cares? Well, I think the victims will care. I think the fact that police officers are working hard to do that is getting lost. But this issue's got to be resolved, and we've got to deal with it.
And just lastly, before we go to the next call, Suzanne, we're coming to you in just a second. As it is such a key case, why have you not asked what the investigation has discovered?
Well, because we've got to try and keep a separation of powers, so that what happens is that there are a series of officers leading up to the Deputy Commissioner.
You've not asked whether any of your blokes are potentially lying?
No, that's not really what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we have a process, which means that we have investigators. Sure. And they have to get on independent with that investigation.
Sure, and you can't, but now it's concluded.
Let me just explain.
Yeah, but I'm intrigued.
No, that's why I'm trying to explain, which is that we've got a series of investigators. They report up through the Deputy Commissioner. Then a file is produced. Then the file goes to the Crown Prosecution Service if there's a suspicion of a crime. They have to decide whether or not they decide that a crime's been committed and a person's committed a crime. If they decide not, the file comes back for the Met and the IPCC together to decide if there's any misconduct. And then finally that misconduct process happens. So we, as Commissioner and as Chief Constable in any police force, you are kept separate from that process.
Right, and you can't speak to the Deputy Commissioner who's overseen the whole process and say, what have we got here, Sid or Sarah or whatever the name is?
Well, you're trying to keep it away as far as possible. I mean,
don't you want to know?
No, in general terms.
You don't want to know?
Well, Nick, hang on. Let me just explain.
If this was one of my blokes out there,
are you going to can I explain? Which is that, of course, in a general terms, I want to know, have they got enough resources to carry out the investigation? People are saying, how long is it going to take you? So I want to make sure they've got enough resources. I want to make sure it's making reasonable progress. But day by day, what statements have been taken, what interviews have happened, what was said in the interviews, how all the evidence is checked out, is really we try to keep separate so that I can neither influence it. What I do want to know is that obviously if we've had to manage the organisation during that year, and if there are problems identified at an organisational level, I want to make sure that we're doing something about it. So we did, if you remember, organise a review of our security arrangements around Downing Street.
Yes.
To make sure that we put in place a good regime to reassure the government and others that we got the right sort of guarding in place there.
And how much was it delayed by the unfortunate fact that one of the officers has had emotional health problems?
Well, if you understand, we're not going to talk about individual officers.
Well, I haven't named him or her.
No, but we're not going to talk about the investigation or the individual problems, other than to say there'd be many reasons why this has been delayed, some of which we can talk about and some of which we can't. We're just going to have to bear the brunt of the public criticism at the moment and accept it's taken a long time, and I believe that we'll get to the bottom of it.
But one of the officers has experienced problems, hasn't he?
Well, I've said I'm not prepared to talk about that.
But the Mayor's told me. Why can't you tell me?
Well, that's for the Mayor to say.
We're not as close as we used to be, Sir Bernard. Suzanne's in Barnet. You're through to the Commissioner. Go ahead, Suzanne.
Oh, hello, good morning. I need some advice. We've got a drug dealer moved in 2 doors away from me, and we have given 3 independent witnesses reports to the police.
Suzanne, how do you know the man is a drug dealer? Suzanne,
because
I've asked you obviously not to say anybody's name, but how do you know he's a drug dealer?
I'm not going to. I witnessed it.
You've witnessed it?
It's happening on my doorstep.
Okay, on you go. Right, okay, go on.
Okay, so, and the neighbour, three of the neighbours have also submitted the statement to the local police, and we've also got the MP involved as well now, who on our behalf has taken our issue to the borough commander.
So what advice are you seeking from the Commissioner, Suzanne?
We haven't got any response back from him.
From who?
From the Commissioner.
You've written
from from the borough commander. But I need some advice from. Yeah, okay, so I need some advice where to go next.
Let's bring Sir
because
Bernard
we
in.
have we have approached the newspapers as well. But before we take that drastic step, I want to know if there is other way we can solve this problem.
Suzanne, first of all, I know that you've not given your full name, which is good, but whatever we end up with this conversation, don't give your address either. I'm not saying you're going to, but probably best you didn't. If you write to me, or if we can get your details by the end of the programme, I will follow that up. I'm surprised if no action's been taken, and sometimes things are being done quietly and carefully, but I don't know. but I will look into it on your behalf. It's clear that if your MP is involved, I'm sure it will have been passed to the borough commander and be taking it serious, or it is a he there, will be taking it seriously. But I'll look into it for you and see what's happening.
Suzanne, stay on the line. One of our team will take details. Thank you for not giving anything away that could have compromised. More calls to Sir Bernard Hogan-Howe after these news headlines.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC 97.3.
With GoToMeeting. Your free 30-day trial can start today.
Hi, I'm Mark Davis, a station controller on the London Underground. As part of our plan to modernise the tube, work is taking place across the whole network. We're introducing more accessible trains, which combined with new signalling means better journeys and a more reliable service. As you can hear, the work is ongoing, but we're doing everything we can to keep closures to a minimum. Keep up with our improvement plan and how it might affect you at tfl.gov.uk.
Being a farmer was always my dream, but I didn't realise it'd be such a nightmare. First my ducks flew away, then my pigs wouldn't breed. So in desperation, I turned to drink. Well, actually I started a winery here in sunny Kent. After 5 years, I'd created a pretty good Pinot Noir. That's when I asked Lloyds Bank to help me expand abroad, because I'd heard that in the last year they approved 80% of loans. Anyway, after working through my business plans, they gave me the thumbs up. So now the Chinese, Indians and Koreans are fans of my wine, not to mention some of the residents of Kent.
Business loans from Lloyds Bank for the moments that matter. Lending subject to status.
News headlines here on LBC 97.3. Lisa Aziz.
Thousands of police officers in London are taking part in a crackdown on stolen mobile phones and other personal thefts after a surge in the crimes in the past year. A senior Conservative is claiming there's a crisis of ethics within the police service. David Davis is calling for a royal commission to investigate police culture following the Plebgate scandal. And people are gathering ahead of Prince George's christening at St James's Palace this afternoon. 4 generations of the royal family will attend the private ceremony in the Chapel Royal. The FTSE's reopened at 66.95, and London's weather. Heavy showers early on, mainly dry later though with brighter spells, highs of 18 degrees. This is LBC 97.3.
This weekend, great deals on sumptuous plums, luscious limes, raspberry bellinis, intense truffles, proud peacocks and even muddy puddles. It's the Dulux Let's Colour weekend. Time to buy some colour with great deals on selected Dulux paints. And because our colours can change more than just your walls, there are great deals on fresh starts as well. At participating retailers, terms and exclusions apply and vary, as do sizes. See dulux.co.uk for details. Dulux. Let's colour.
LBC 97.3. Call 0845 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC 973. London's biggest conversation with Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
Just before we take the next call, Sir Bernard Hogan-Howe, Commissioner of the Met, is with me. Mike, your call is up next. Just a word, if you would, Commissioner, on the newsline there on the LBC 97.3 bulletin. More than 5,000 officers in London taking part in an operation now targeting mobile phone thefts. This follows a 12% surge in this particular crime area.
Right, well, first of all, just to make clear, it's not just because I'm coming on LBC that we're having this operation. We have these operations every month. We call them a big wing operation. So the 32 boroughs of London carry out an operation together to impact on crime. Because otherwise we say, well, you did it, you had a crackdown in Barnet and you just squeezed it into Hackney. So we try and do it together. And today, particularly around mobile phones. So where we believe people are trading them, stealing them, or just getting out there and making sure that we're making criminals' lives uncomfortable.
How does an issue force its way to the top of your agenda? Why is it phones and not cars or whatever else it might be?
Well, first of all, as I was saying earlier, crime generally is coming down. So if we carry on at the rate we are, we believe we will, we'll get to we'll never have dropped crime quicker for 30 years. And I think that's a great achievement in a recession. Despite having less money ourselves, and in what is a challenging set of circumstances of the community, we are still driving crime down. I mean, your robbery's down by 13%. That's theft with violence, a very serious crime. Burglary's down. So we're doing an awful lot. But we do notice if the trend goes the other way, even for a short time. And the one that's been a problem has been theft of mobile phones. People have been stealing it in the street, sometimes robbing, using violence, sometimes riding up on bikes and stealing it. It's a portable thing. It can be sold. Many of them sold abroad. So what we want to do is, for that crime type, we need to get it down. one of the things we discovered, I was saying in the break to you that I went over to America this last few days, and we've looked at, have they got similar crime trends? One similar crime trend in New York. New York's seen a drop in crime, as we know, over the years. But this last year, they saw a rise in crime for the first time, entirely down to mobile phone theft. So it's a common international problem. So what we need to do is to act against trends in crime and make sure that we really hit them hard. Sometimes we go after no-insured cars. We've now seized 85,000 in the last 2 years uninsured cars. In fact, somebody might have seen last week we sold a Lamborghini. It was about £350,000 worth of car. We got 218,000 for. Somebody said, well, why didn't they just pay the insurance? Well, I don't know. I suspect they don't care. Or they've got so much money, it really doesn't matter, which is hard to understand.
And that 218 goes into police coffers.
It does. And we've got millions of pounds over the last 2 years. But the main reason for doing it is to make sure there's uninsured cars off the road. Secondly, if they don't get insured, we can keep that car, trash it, we'll scrap it, or sell it, get the money for it, or we can sell it, as we did in this case, and keep the money. Not personally.
No, you're not Arthur Daly.
It helps. We should have had £3.5 billion. Over the next few years, we're going to lose £500 million, a huge amount of money. It's one way it will help us. So it'll help us maintain our police officer numbers. And just finally to say, as I'm going to take the opportunity to point out, despite the fact we're losing £500 million, and we're going to have to lose some buildings, about a third of our estate, we will lose some of our managers. We'll have less managers and be, I think, better managed. And sadly, we'll lose some of our police staff, about 3,000. But in the next 2 years, we'll end up with still 32,000 police and more constables than we've ever had. So instead of, the Met's never had more than 24,500, we'll have 26. And they're going to neighbourhoods and on response, and people will see a difference.
Let's get those calls through to you. Mike's in Putney. I think you want to talk crime stats. Go ahead, Mike.
I do, yeah. Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning, Mike.
Commissioner, I'd like to say is this. Why is it there are a lot of criminals out there managing to get hold of stun guns when we've got a licence for guns, but we don't have a licence for stun guns?
Could I just ask you, because it's not been my experience, we've had a lot of reports of this, of stun guns. Is it your experience that there are lots about?
Well, no, there was a documentary about 6 months ago on TV that this was the case.
Right, I didn't see that. I think what you'll find is it's illegal to import these things. It may not be illegal to own them, which is what you may think is odd. We can often still use the law about offensive weapons to seize them from people, but I think the mere possession of them in a house is not illegal. So I suppose your question, should they be licensed? You could look at that. I've not seen that there's such a big problem we need to consider licensing, and generally it's handled by the customs people, making sure they don't get into the country because they can't be sold here.
Yeah, I mean, you can buy them off the website.
Yeah, except that, which is normally there for a foreign purchase. And so we've had problems with that around firearms as well. So licensing of itself doesn't stop these things. But I've not seen it's such a big problem. But perhaps it's something I need to have a look into more, because I've not seen the programme.
And also, secondly, is it high time police should be armed with stun guns?
Not generally. I mean, I had a bit of feedback, quite a lot of, protest about the fact over the last 18 months we've put more stun guns into the hands of our officers, tasers they call them. So as I arrived, then the tasers were only with our firearms units and with some of our specialist units. We had a really bad attack on 4 officers with a man with a machete in Harrow, you may remember, 18 months, and it took about 40 minutes for the officers with the tasers to arrive. It's too late. So I took the decision to give 2 cars in each of our boroughs, so only 2 cars, 4 officers, to be armed with tasers, to make them more available to officers when they needed them. People reacted and said that that was going too far. I don't think it was. I thought it was a reasonable next step. And at the moment, I don't see that changing. So in each of our boroughs, which might have 15 vehicles going around, 2 of them have got tasers to help the colleagues when they need it.
You don't see the increasing that number of cars then, Commissioner?
Not at the moment. I mean, it took us 18 months to get to that level, because you've got to buy them, you've got to train officers, it takes an awful long time. And at the moment, I just don't see the evidence. I think you've got to look at what's the problem and then make a reasonable response. And I don't want it to appear that we are arming all our officers because of the need, because I don't think at the moment there is that need. But I'll have to continue to listen to our officers, and I'll have to continue to look at the stats.
And also the Police and Crime Committee of the London Assembly have demanded it's only used as a last resort.
Well, there's this very clear escalation of force for the police. The overall test is, are you using reasonable force? and you'll be held to account by the criminal law if you get that wrong. So sadly, at times, it's possible, therefore, to use lethal force. At the other extreme, just a harsh word can be enough to, make sure that you keep control of a situation to prevent violence. So on that spectrum, you can only use the force that is reasonable, and that people say, well, what does that mean? Well, it generally means you have to look at the situation.
And how many times have they been deployed? Do you have a note of how the level has increased?
I don't have the figures directly in front of me, but I do know that in the first year where we'd increased the number of tasers out there, and we doubled the number of times that we'd taken it out. I think the figures I've seen for 2012, if I'm wrong, please excuse me, but in that year which we'd increased the prevalence of them, we doubled the number of times we took them out of the holster, which I think was from about 300 times to 600 times, so about twice a day across the City of London. We'd actually decreased the number of times we fired it, and I think it had gone from 58 to 56. So once a week, despite the fact we'd had more, despite the fact we took it out of holster more, that taking it out of holster, pointing the red dot at someone and saying, please stop what you're doing, has worked. And we've shown, I think, that we've acted responsibly with it. And that was one of the things I wanted to do, not only for our own officers, but for the public, to show that if we rolled it out further, police officers would act responsibly with it. I was confident they would. But, of course, this is good evidence that they have.
All right. Mike, thank you. Peter's in Fulham. You're through to the Commissioner. Peter.
Good morning.
Good morning, Peter.
Yeah, good morning. For my job, I have to have a criminal record check. The Metropolitan Police received my criminal record check on the 2nd of August and didn't clear it until the 4th of October. They prevented me from working for 2 months. Why did it take so long?
Well, first of all, we'll have a look at your particular case and find out how long your case took, if there was a particular problem, Peter. So I can't explain that particular one. What I can say in general is that much of it goes also through the Criminal Records Bureau, and we play part of that. Now, if it's our responsibility...
But it said it was received by the Metropolitan Police on the 2nd of August.
Yeah.
For the check, and so they didn't clear it to the 4th of October. 2 months, there's computers, and I was prevented working. I've got a wife, 2 children and a mortgage, and I couldn't pay anything for 2 months because of their incompetence.
Well, I'm not sure it's incompetence, Peter. I think the first thing is, without knowing the full details of your check, I'd have to, there may be complications, I don't know. And number two is that, of course, it's part of the things that we do. And, we've got to prioritise resources. I agree with you, 2 months sounds a long time.
What should it be? Do you have a guideline of how long it should take?
I don't know offhand. I'll find out. But I agree with Peter, 2 months sounds a long time, and I'll have a look at his case. But, we do get a huge volume of these things, but a large chunk of it is down also to the Criminal Records Bureau, which is not the police.
Peter, stay on the line again. Give details. I know that the Commissioner's team do take these on, and we'll come back to you. Phyllis in Bexley, you're through to Sir Bernard Hogan-Howe. Phyllis, good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning, Phyllis.
On the problem with this plebgate business with Andrew Mitchell, all right, the pleb situation was terribly, terribly wrong if it's proven. But Mr. Mitchell himself didn't really do himself any favours by swearing at the officers. The fact that he actually tried to go through the main gates, which is preserved solely for the Prime Minister, I understand, why did he demand goes through there? Isn't that just arrogance?
Well, you might understand, Phyllis, that I'm really not going to comment on this because every time I say anything, people think that I'm trying to influence something, and I generally am not. I think the only thing I can say is that we're all eager to see the outcome of this inquiry and that we get back to some kind of normality, because I think it's not good for the police and it's not good for public confidence. I'm determined to get to the bottom of it. We've got a thorough investigation. I think we really now have to await the outcome of that to hopefully reassure people that we're going to move forward in a positive direction.
Have you spoken with Andrew Mitchell?
I haven't.
At all? In the whole first 13 months this has been going on?
No, I haven't.
You don't think that would have been appropriate?
Well, I think it's one of the dilemmas we have is if you talk to someone, it can be seen as though you are being influenced or trying to influence someone. If we don't, we can be seen as ignorant. And of course, as a public figure, I suppose, you have to be careful how much access we give to a public figure compared to somebody who lives in Croydon or Lewisham. Would I do it for them? So, but the bottom line is we haven't.
So the incredible thing is, as you say, crime is falling, and yet so is, although it's still very healthy, but so is trust in the police. Why do you suppose that is?
Well, actually, ironically, for the past 5 years, confidence has been going up. In fact, if you looked in the Met, there's a league table of confidence.
But you're aware of the findings of the Sunday Times? Sorry,
yeah.
The Sunday Times.
I'm just trying to set the context.
Go
I'm
ahead.
going to come back to that.
Yeah.
Which is that for the last, I think, 5 years, confidence in the police has been going up. And ironically, for these last couple of years, while ours has gone up, some parts of the country have gone down, I suspect because they've been losing police officers. So we've gone up about 10 places in the league table to, I think, about 17th out of 43. So our confidence has been going up. Now, there's no doubt this is going to have, I'm sure, will have an impact on the confidence levels. But we do check every month, and generally it has been on the increase. But I've seen the most recent surveys, and it has had an impact. Well, it appears to have from these surveys.
Yes.
I don't know what question they've asked.
So why is that? You're solving more crimes, but you're not held in as much esteem as you were. It can only be an issue of trust.
Well, I'm not disputing that, Nick. I'm not saying that people are unaffected by this. But of course, if you do surveys very quickly after different parts of this inquiry have been going on, you can get a reaction. I think the best thing is to have a mature judgment at the end of it.
More calls to the Commissioner, Sir Bernard Hogan-Howe, a little bit later here on LBC 97.3. It's 8:32. News time, Lisa Aziz.
The Met Police Commissioner, Sir Bernard Hogan-Howe, has told LBC 97.3 he hopes the Plebgate investigation will be concluded as soon as possible.
It's a significant issue, and of course it would be better it's resolved quickly. So I'm not going to sit here and say I think this is a low priority thing. It's a very high priority thing. We want to get to the end of it. It's certainly not helping. The irony is, during the time that we've been, this has been an issue, the Met has been performing better than ever.
3 officers accused of trying to discredit Andrew Mitchell will face MPs' questions later. A senior Conservative politician, David Davis, is calling for a royal commission to investigate police culture following the scandal. Thousands of police officers are taking part in an operation in London this morning targeting mobile phone thefts. Personal theft crimes have risen 12% in the past year. 10,000 mobiles are stolen in the city every month. Unions angry at proposed staff cuts on the Underground are protesting at some of London's busiest tube stations this morning. TUC members are at Oxford Circus, Liverpool Street and Elephant and Castle demonstrating against planned ticket office closures. And the christening of Prince George will take place later at St James's Palace. The 3-month-old will be baptised by the Archbishop of Canterbury in a private ceremony attended by close family and friends. At 8:15, the FTSE was down 19 at 66.76. And London's weather, heavy showers early on this morning, mainly drier later though, with some bright spells, highs of 18 Celsius. Right now at Marble Arch, it's 15 degrees. LBC 97.3, it's 8:33.
I'm Andy McCall in the LBC 97.3 Travel Centre. Our main story this morning, the M4 queuing into town now. Junction 5 at Langley, just the inside lane closed for the emergency resurfacing work. That's causing queues back to Junction 10 at the Reading 8329M turning. Keeping London moving. Next travel update is in 15 minutes.
This is LBC 97.3. Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC 97.3.
With GoToMeeting.co.uk, the simple way to connect to others online.
B&Q can help you say goodbye to your unloved kitchens, bathrooms and bedrooms with 20% off when you spend £350 or more. You can do it, Britain. Now's the time to transform your tub, wow your wardrobe and dazzle your diner with 20% off kitchens, bathrooms and bedrooms at B&Q. You can do it. Offer ends November 7th. £350 must be spent in a single transaction. Excludes servicing, repair, delivery, installation, appliances and shower enclosures.
Would you like Help to Buy? With a deposit from just £15,000 or 5% and the government scheme, Galliard can now offer new homes at New Capital Quay, Greenwich Riverside, Blackheath Village, Charlton or Woodford Green. To find out more, visit galliardhomes/help to buy. That's galliardhomes/help to buy.
How could you improve an Audi A4 SE Technique? Not with 18-inch alloy wheels, metallic paint, Milano leather, satellite navigation or parking sensors. It already has them, as standard. And from £279 a month, it's hard to improve on value. Find out more at your local Audi centre. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik. Business users only. Terms and conditions apply based on 36-month, 30,000-mile hire agreement. Excludes VAT and initial rental. Subject to availability for orders before 31st of December 2013. Audi Finance.
LBC 97.3. Call 0845 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC 973. This is London's biggest conversation with Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
$8:36, Sir Bernard Hogan-Howe, Commissioner of the Met, is in the studio and taking your calls. Let's get straight to another call. AJ is in Enfield. You're through to the Commissioner. Go ahead, AJ.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning,
just wanted to say, first of all, that the policing is a very difficult job. And, I'm not trying to knock anything, but we had an incident recently, and one of your officers in our local Safer Neighbourhood team dealt with it very professionally. Can I mention his name?
I'd like you to.
Yeah, Sergeant Craig Kimberley. Absolutely superb response. Very limited evidence that we gave him, and he chased it up, and through good old-fashioned policing methods, he got a result.
Excellent. Well, if you don't mind, AJ, what I will do is I'll write to him and say thank you, because if people do, which they do, they write to me and about good and bad, and I always follow up. And one of the things I always do is to let the officer know that that's been said, so everybody else will have heard, but I'll make sure he knows that you mentioned it.
Yes, that's a good idea. But he was part of the Enfield Turkey Street Safer Neighbourhoods team, and they did a marvellous job, and I recently found out that it's been disbanded, and I wanted to know why. Is that a general thing borough-wide, or is it just local that we've had this issue?
No, well, we have changed the neighbourhood team model, and we've put more people into it, so I'd hope it's improved, not got worse. What has happened is some of the boundaries have changed, and I think you'll find that what we've done is put more constables in, and it may be that the sergeants had to take a broader responsibility, so it shouldn't be that the teams have been disbanded, so we put more in. It won't. You remember I was saying, you may not have heard, but I was saying to Nick earlier that we're going to get up to 26,000 constables. By the time we do that, we'll have got 2,600 more constables into the neighbourhoods. I know that at the moment that's a false promise, in the sense that we haven't got all those officers there yet. We've got to get the money out and sell buildings and all the rest of it. So within 2 years you will get physically more, but you already should have some, the ones that we've got out of the back offices. And we've changed the model to the extent we put more into it and changed some of the boundaries. But I hope you'll find it's better, not worse.
So my understanding is that my local neighbourhood team has been disbanded, not rearranged, but just disbanded.
Well, the only thing I can say for definite is that you will have a team, and it should have more people in it. And there should be no part of London that has, I'm going to get this right, every part of London should have a neighbourhood team. So I can ask for you to find out what's happened to your team if you leave us a few details.
Stay on the line and we'll get involved in that as well from journalistic point. AJ, thank you. Couple, I must turn to some of the emails, texts and tweets that have come in. Wave from Hither Green says there seems to have been a massive leap forward in the investigation to try and find out what happened to Madeleine McCann since the Met got involved. Thank God for the Met. What can Bernard tell us about the progress that's been made? Asks Wave.
Well, first of all, I think the big step forward is that together with the Portuguese, we are carrying out an investigation now. If you remember, we've had 2 years of a review. We've been reviewing papers, documents, and that's helped us to reach some conclusions about where the inquiry should go. But of course, it's no good having conclusions. You've got to go out there and investigate. So we've got that agreement from the Portuguese, and they've got a team in place, so that's a great step forward. We've got some lines of inquiry which we think can be productive, but we've never said that we can, we're not absolutely certain yet we can solve this case. And we know the Portuguese are still, determined to get to the bottom of it. So we will work as a partnership. Mr. and Mrs. McCann are reassured by the fact that Met's involved. I think that's been said publicly. So, we're confident that we will be, we hope we can make, I think the best I can say is that we've got some definite lines of inquiry. We hope we can make some good progress, and we've got our best chance by working together with the Portuguese.
And what is the level of cooperation between the Met and the Portuguese forces?
It's been good. It's been, the possibility.
How would you describe their initial investigation soon after Madeleine went missing?
I can't really make any comment on the initial investigation because I don't know.
Well, it's been reported that they didn't perform particularly well in what's known as the golden hour. They didn't close down ports. They didn't put out, if they still call them an APB, I don't know what they call them, put out a broadcast to try and track down where the girl might have been. It's fairly critical.
I think sometimes these things at the beginning can be very difficult to deal with. You don't know exactly if the child just wandered off, or they're just nearby. It can be very difficult to know whether you've got a very serious crime or just a child's gone missing. So I'm sure for them that must have been a challenge. Anybody can go back after 2, 3, now we've got 5, 6 years later and say, well, why didn't you do that? That's easy hindsight. And we don't like it when it happens to the Met, and I'm certainly not going to do it to the Portuguese. I think what we're determined to do is to work together to make sure that we've got the best chance now of trying to get to the bottom of this terrible tragedy, because you've got a poor family there who've got the torture of not knowing whether their daughter is alive or not. And surely that's something we've all got to be determined to try and resolve.
And how does the investigation get affected or influenced by the discovery of seems to be a number of girls at Roma camps in Greece and elsewhere in Europe?
I don't think it's had any direct impact. I suppose as we saw with we've seen, particularly girls taken as hostage in various countries, I think Switzerland and America, where they've been stored in basements and being just kept away from society. This is where it possibly, it looks as though there's been a girl gone from an area and then gone to live with a family in the open, but now being taken away. I think the Greeks have taken them away, this little girl away from the family. So it looks like there's a possibility that there is, around the world, there are occasions when people steal children and keep them. And I'm sure in one sense that's what the McCanns must be hoping, that at least their child is alive.
And your officers are alive to that possibility.
Of course. And because they're too broad, and the other sad possibility, and sadly she's not alive. And either way, we'd want to try and end the torture that they're going through.
Are you confident you'll get there?
I'm confident that we've now got our best chance of resolving it. I think I can't be absolutely confident we will resolve it 100%. I am confident we've got some really good officers involved. We've made some really good progress on the lines of inquiry. But until you carry out the lines of inquiry, you can't be sure you're going to get to the end of it. We haven't got one line of inquiry that will definitely produce it. And if only that was pursued, we'd get to the end of it. I can't say that to you. But I think we've got a really good chance.
Suzanne's in Marble Arch. You're through to the Commissioner. Suzanne.
Good morning, Nick and Commissioner. How are you today?
Good morning, Suzanne. I'm very well, thank you.
Good. We live in W1 Marble Arch, and my boyfriend was walking home in the summer quite late at night, and he was approached by a group of guys who pretended they wanted to sort of give him a hug, that they were a bit drunk and wanted to sort of make friends with him. And he realised that they were sort of very much in his personal space, and he said to them, look, you need to back off now. And they were like, no, and they were sort of patting him. Anyway, the next morning he realised they'd stolen his Rolex while they were patting him. They were a group of Romanians, and his daughter had her bag stolen in Shoreditch on the weekend, also by Romanians. And I just want to know, what is the Met doing to protect Londoners from this influx of gangs from Eastern Europe, which are threatening our way of life? And also, I would like to add, on the M40, drive like absolute lunatics. Right. And there never seems to be a policeman there to see it.
Okay. Well, the latter one, it's a bit hard to know how people would know the origins of the people. But I think, first of all, as you know, around Marble Arch, there have been some issues about people gathering who appear to be at least migrants. And together with the police and the UKBA and the Westminster City Council, we are working to stop that issue because, it's a tourist venue. Secondly, if we got a report of crime, which in this case looks like theft, we have made quite a lot of arrests of people who are committing that sort of crime. And we're alive to the fact that people from different countries arrive by EasyJet or Ryanair or whoever into London, commit crime and then wander off somewhere else. So what we're doing is working with those countries to reduce the possibility of them getting away with it.
How?
Well, first of all, for example, I went about a year ago now to Romania with one of the assistant commissioners to see how we got to work together better in terms of sharing intelligence, forensics, and getting access to criminal records. Because if we arrest people here, we need to know more about their country of origin. It's not just Romania. This lady mentioned Romania, and there are some Romanians, but other countries. And what we know is of the nearly 300,000 people we arrest every year, we've already said, is that 28% of them are foreign nationals. Now, that's not unusual. London is a great diverse city. It's probably broadly the proportion of the city. But what's vital is that in our investigations, we have an efficient process for getting back to the country of origin and say, well, can we check our scene samples against your database? Can we get your intelligence about this individual? If we arrest somebody for rape, we need to know they've previously been arrested for rape because their defence of consent may not be as persuasive if you realise they've been arrested 3 previous times. So in that area, we've done a huge amount. And we've also found that in our gang work, we've now got 1,200 officers fighting the gangs. There's a significant.
Does this include Roma gangs?
Yes. Well, there are. I think again, this figure about 1 in 4 are foreign nationals. So we're making sure that we've.
Because Nigel Farage says there's Roma gangs waiting, not Romanians, Roma gangs waiting. When the borders come down the 1st of January next year, they'll come in, they see London as rich and easy pickings, they get deported, and I think you said they just get back on Ryanair and come back a few days later. Well,
we have to do 2 things. During the period of time we've been doing this work, I think about 1,000 people have been excluded from the UK, working with the UKBA. Sometimes it's best that they're held to account in this country, through the courts, and where they serve a prison sentence. But we're determined to make sure that we make London a hostile environment for criminals. What we've not got to do is to condemn all people from abroad, because I just don't agree with that. There's no doubt that the Romanian ambassador, many of the ambassadors want to make sure their country is respected.
Important to make the distinction between Roma and Romanians.
Well, I think both are important. I think the danger is we say, well, it's all foreigners who commit crime. Yeah, that's not true. We know that 99% of people from other countries are good people. They're migrating here for employment. I think there's 250,000 French people live in. It's supposed London. It's supposed to be the 5th biggest French town.
The mayor always goes on about that.
In Europe. Well, that's great. What's wrong? It's not that foreigners are a problem, but where you have foreign criminals, we have to act effectively. And I think this is Suzanne's point. What are we doing? well, we have taken it as an issue. We are doing something about it, and our Operation Nexus, which is what we call it, is determined to make inroads into this.
OK, I must stop you there. We must get to news headlines. You're listening to LBC 97.3, 8:46 news time.
The Met Police Commissioner, Sir Bernard Hogan-Howe, has told LBC 97.3 he hopes the Plebgate investigation will be concluded as soon as possible. 3 officers accused of trying to discredit Andrew Mitchell will face MP's questions later. Unions and campaigners angry at proposed staff cuts on the Underground are protesting at some of London's busiest tube stations this morning, and crowds are gathering ahead of Prince George's christening at St James's Palace this afternoon. 4 generations of the royal family will attend the private ceremony in the Chapel Royal. The FTSE's down 25 at 66.69, and London's weather, heavy showers early on, mainly drier later though with some bright spells, highs of 18 degrees. This is LBC 97.3.
This weekend, great deals on sumptuous plums, luscious limes, raspberry bellinis, intense truffles, proud peacocks and even muddy puddles. It's the Dulux Let's Colour weekend. Time to buy some colour with great deals on selected Dulux paints. And because our colours can change more than just your walls, there are great deals on fresh starts as well. At participating retailers, terms and exclusions apply and vary, as do sizes. See dulux.co.uk for details. Dulux. Let's colour.
Every goes into every Renault van. The advanced technology developed for our multi-championship winning Formula 1 engines also goes into the heart of every Renault Kangoo van, meaning greater fuel efficiency and reduced emissions. Kangoo van prices start from $8,995 plus 4 years warranty and roadside assistance. To experience the technology for yourself, book a test drive today at Renault.co.uk. Excludes 20% VAT and delivery charges, business users only.
Sitting at a desk for long hours in the wrong type of chair can be very hard on your back. But how do you choose the office chair that's right for you? Back2 is the answer. We offer a wide range of office chairs, sit-stand desks and professional no-obligation advice. Too busy? No problem. We'll carry out a workstation assessment in your office. Back2, open every day in Wigmore Street and online at back2.co.uk. Get back to business with Back2, the office chair experts.
The hand-baggage only fare. The pack less and pay less fare. The don't be silly, you won't need the extra shirt fare. The not waiting for baggage straight to dinner fare. The use the money you've saved to treat yourself fare. The grande beera, extra gelato and second tiramisu fare. The button popping off your shirt fare. The hand-baggage only from £39 fare. British Airways. To fly, to serve, to Europe.
Book online, travel one way, limited availability, selected dates, conditions and booking fee may apply.
LBC 97.3. Call 0845 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC 973. London's biggest conversation with Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
Eleven minutes before 9, Sir Bernard Hogan-Howe, Met Police Commissioner, in the studio with me here on LBC 97.3. A question now for Sir Bernard from the emails. Dan in Dartford, how much money has it cost to guard Julian Assange at the embassy, and is it money well spent?
I can't remember the exact figure, so if you apologise for that.
Let's see if we can get an idea of a figure. We'll get
I'll do my best.
Have a sip of water.
It's all right, I'll try not to choke on line.
OK.
But I think it's something of the order of 3 to 6 million.
How much?
3 to 6 million. It's quite a lot of money.
Well, that's more than Lamborghinis. You have to sell a few Lamborghinis to pay for that, Commissioner.
But I mean, we've not. This is
back to
the only point I would make. I've answered the question, which was how much. But of course, it's not. We've got cash out of the bank and gone and just waved it about. This is the cost of the police officers performing the function. So I've given an honest answer to how much it's costing. But the officers would have been there anyway. Generally, this is a diplomatic, as we know. Obviously, this is a diplomatic setting, so we have a duty to provide that cover. What we don't have a duty to do is provide it to the extent that we are. But clearly, there is an extradition warrant in place. We know.
What's the fear? What's your fear? Why do we have to... That's a wide range, by the way, Sir Bernard, between 3 and 6 million.
I did say at the beginning I wasn't absolutely sure. My point is, it would have been easier to say I don't know and it would have passed.
Yeah.
But I know it's the order of millions.
I've got sorry to talk over you, sir. In May, it was 4.2 So
actually, in that range, I was right.
You were doing pretty well.
Order.
I feel like the price is right here. Come on down.
But I think, the reason that we are having to do it is obviously...
Why not just put one copper? Why the level that you give?
Because can you just imagine what you would have said if we put one copper at the front and he nipped out the back?
Well, he's not allowed to do that, is he? None of the
we say he's not allowed to do it. He may do it, and in which case we've then got to find him. So at the end of the day, we know there's an extradition warrant in place. This is for an offence that's suggested to be committed abroad. We have a duty to make an arrest on that warrant. We believe we know where the person's involved, and it's vital that we get to the bottom of it. This is quite a complex international issue. You will remember, obviously, everybody will remember about WikiLeaks and the Americans being angry about that. We've got this issue of a serious crime alleged in Sweden.
Yep.
So this is a serious matter, and we've got to treat it seriously. And we have to get the balance right, because, I say, if we got it wrong and he got away, and even if he gets away now, with all these people outside, you'll be asking even more questions.
How wise were The Guardian to publish the Snowden files? The head of MI5 was considerably disappointed by that publication.
It seems I agree with what Andrew Parker said, which is that we only have so many secrets, and we have as a state we have a duty and an obligation to keep them. I think journalists have an obligation to make sure that they give the air of publicity to things that are improper, and I think we all understand that. But I think at the same time they've got a duty to make sure that they don't breach secrets, and I think it's really hard for them to know what is a secret that's safe to share and one that puts someone's life at risk. I think in that regard, they should be very careful before they put things into the public domain where they don't know the consequences of the secrets being lost.
They shouldn't have run it, should they?
Well, for me, I think that they should have thought very hard. They needed to... The issue of how much intrusion into people's telephones and emails is clearly a matter of public interest. It doesn't mean to say you have to share all of the content.
Talking about newspapers, front page of The Times today, David Davis, former Shadow Home Secretary, suggests all police officers should wear cameras and microphones routinely.
Actually, I agree with him. I say, in principle, I agree. And I was saying to you, I've been to America, and they're having the same debate. Should they give all their officers video cams? So I think, in principle, it's good. It makes you open, it makes you accountable, and then if something's said afterwards, you can check. I think the only issues we've all got to work through, and the Americans are having exactly the same debate, if I, as a police officer, am walking in the street, and I bump into you walking with your child, and I've got this camera on, do I have it on all the time? Do I have to say, look, our conversation be recorded? Concern is that a police officer just talking to a member of the public, do they really want to record that? But of course, if you turn it off sometimes, when do you turn it on? There is issues of logistics, if you take, if officers are all day, every day, this is huge gigabytes, terabytes, whatever they're called, of data. You've got to store it, costs money. Probably as importantly, defence lawyers and litigators will say, well, you were walking down the street that day, what have you got? We have a duty then to find it, so we've got to index it. And then you've got the issue of consent. If I come into your house and you're a burglary victim, this camera will record all that you've got in your house. And then if somebody on an FOI request, a Freedom of Information request, says, I'd like to see it, do we then have to share it? So I think, first of all...
How do they handle all of this in the States?
They haven't resolved it yet.
They haven't. They're still working through.
They do what we're doing. In the Met, we're having a pilot over the next few months, which has got about 400 officers who are going to wear these things. We've already got 1 or 2 out there doing it. But I think we're all approaching it with some care, not because we don't want to do it, but because in doing it, we have to make sure we do it well, and it has to be tested in the courts as well. So I think, in principle, it's a good thing.
Mr Davis said it would end decades of clumsy cover-ups, Commissioner.
Well, clearly he's got a particular view, obviously, I know, around the Plebgate issue, and I understand that. The point I agree with him entirely is if we've got nothing to hide, let's be open. Let's just be clear, it doesn't change the nature of the relationship with the public.
And do we need a royal commission into policing, as David Davis suggests?
Well, I'm open-minded to that. I think it's something that, first of all, I think if it's about the Plebgate issue, and also if you think about Hillsborough, then I think you need a cool, clear reflection at the end of this issue to see whether or not that's needed, because some of these things are very old, some are more recent. Do we need one? Number 2 is, if you are going to have a review of the police, is the Royal Commission the best vehicle? Governments over the years have fought shy of them. One reason, they take too long, and number 2, by the time they report, the government's gone. So it's a good way of shoving things into the long grass, frankly. So I think if there is a review needed, a Royal Commission may be the right vehicle, there may be other ideas. But I think the first thing you've got to decide on, a cool reflection, this is what governments are for, is whether or not there's that need. There's clearly some present contemporary concerns, but you've got to take a deep judgment about these things.
Zulfikar is in Newham. Go ahead, Zulfikar.
Good morning, Sir Bernard. I'm a member of the London Muslim Community Forum, which your department kindly hosts. I was at a meeting last night where we had some shocking facts being presented in terms of empirical evidence of hate crimes. It appears that, firstly, there are lots of them which are not being categorized properly at the police stations. And secondly, there seem to be pretty high-level threats to social media, which is reported to the police, but apparently there doesn't seem to be much action being taken. So I would like to know what your plan is, because the risk seems to be much higher nowadays.
Right, Zulfikar, I'm afraid you've got the advantage of me because I'm not sure what these figures are. But the first thing is that if we looked post, sadly, the terrible tragedy of the murder of Lee Rigby, then there was an increase particularly in Islamophobic crime, where people were attacking mosques, and we saw two terrible examples in this city. We also saw more complaints of threatening and abusive behaviour in the street, and we took that seriously. I think it actually went up by about 3 or 4 times. Now, it's come down since then, but we did have a surge in it. From time to time, we do get people who say, well, you didn't record it properly. It was Islamophobic, or it was, a race-based or a hate-based crime, and you should have recorded in that way. So I think there can be under-recording of it, but I've not seen the particular figures that you're concerned about. The one on the internet, is a constant challenge. We have a policy that we can't react to every piece of abuse on the internet because we'd just be overwhelmed. But where hate crime is a feature of it, or somebody's threatening someone, then we will react. We should.
Thank you for that, Zulfikar. If you want to give the details, we'll make sure they get passed across of that research you spoke of. Victor's in Euston. Victor, you're through to the Commissioner.
Hello, Sir Bernard.
Good morning, Victor.
Hello, mate. Yeah, my mother was murdered in 1975, and since 2005, when a case was presented and the Criminal Prosecution Service threw it out, apparently for lack of evidence, or according to the police, they had enough for a conviction. So I was told at that time that Crime Watch would be the last resort, and that's what they would go for next. I'm still waiting. Apparently, last September, I should have been on, but Crime Watch wanted to do a period reconstruction. Brentwood Police, so this is your get-out clause, Brentwood Police are dealing with it, and
I know this is a very sensitive matter, Victor. What's your question concerning you? If you can carry on, what's your question to the Commissioner, Victor?
Right. Can anything be done to find out why it's not gone ahead by now?
Right. Victor, would you... It may not be that easy, but your mum's name?
Ivy Davis.
Right.
And she was... I'm sorry about this, Victor. She was murdered in London or in Brentwood?
No, in Southend-on-Sea. Well, Westcliff, actually, in 1975.
It falls a little bit out... I mean, I don't want to hear Sir Bernard. It falls a little bit out of his remit. Bernard Hogan-Howe?
Victor, I thought you were going to say it was a murder in London, in which case what I would have done is... Because I didn't know the name. That's why I was just checking on the name. And it is a while ago. But if you're able... I've got enough detail probably now, but if we get some contact details from Nick's staff, I can talk to the Chief Constable in Essex, who, as it happens, is an ex-Met DAC, a chap called Steve Kavanagh, and I'll raise it with him. And I know Steve well enough to know that he will follow up and find out for you. And either, if you've been made a promise that it's going to Crime Watch or there's going to be another investigation, then I'm sure he would follow up on that. And I'm sure at the very least he'll come back to you.
Victor, we will be sure to pass those details on, and be reassured, I know the Commissioner will get across that and speak with his colleague. We finish with an email, almost as we begun, Sir Bernard Hogan-Howe. The 3 representatives of the Police Federation, says Graham in Bushy, said that Andrew Mitchell said he should resign. When did the police decide who should be in the Cabinet, and should those officers be reprimanded for being politicised, as the police are meant to be neutral? Theresa May says those 3 should, of course.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing, excuse me, I'm going to have to be a little bit careful about is...
Well, you can comment on these 3 officers. None of them are met.
Well, let me just say 2 things. I mean, first of all, there's a Home Affairs Select Committee this afternoon, which I think...
What needs to come out of that?
Well, I think the first thing I was going to say is that I think people will know is that the 3 Chief Constables involved in the West Midlands, 3 Federation representatives, and the 3 Police Crime Commissioners will give their account of what's happened in that case. And I think it'd be very unfair of me to try and judge, frankly, all that I've seen in the public domain. I've known nothing other than what I've seen in the newspapers, so I don't know what's been happening there.
Why don't you make more phone calls, sir?
But let me just finish.
Why don't you ring these people?
Let me just finish.
All right.
The second point is that
desks.
Keith Vaz, the chair of that committee, has actually asked that everybody refrains from public comment until they've had that Home Affairs Select Committee this afternoon. So for that reason alone, to respect their honour, then I won't be commenting on it.
But you can comment on Theresa May's comment that she feels the 3 officers should be investigated. For it would appear to misrepresent the meeting at Sutton Coldfield.
I think if it was to do that, then it seems to me I'll be doing exactly what I've just said I'm not going to do. I mean, back in January I said I didn't think it was wise for the...
How frustrated are you by this, Bernard?
You can't ask me for a comment and then not listen to it. When... Back in January I did say that I didn't think it was for the Police Federation to call for the resignation of a Cabinet Minister. So that position hasn't changed. It wasn't reported at the time. It was at the Home Affairs Select Committee. So I think you've got a comment there that is in the public domain, but it's very important that this afternoon we hear what's happened, and then people will make their judgment. But I'm not going to second-guess my peers about a case I don't know the background to.
And ultimately, and lastly, if it does appear that these officers have in some way colluded, would you apologise to Andrew Mitchell?
Of course, if we've done something wrong, I'll be the first to say I'm sorry. Or we are sorry. It's vital that we get to the bottom of it. But I think I've shown I've shown a lot of evidence that where we've got it wrong, I've said so. I've apologised where we've got things wrong. There's no sense in saying that we're perfect all the time. So of course I would apologise if we got things wrong. But it's vital we find out what did happen.
I look forward to the next time you come in the studios, this being resolved one way or the other, Sir Bernard Hogan-Howe. Congratulations on the crime coming down from all Londoners. That's a very important matter as regards policing.
All right, and thanks, Nick, for your time and the time to talk to your listeners today, of which we are here. There's 1.1 million, so that's quite a lot.
We're doing all right, thank you, sir. Thank you for that plug, and we love the Met too. You've been listening to the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, Sir Bernard Hogan-Howe, here on LBC 97.3. It's 2 minutes after 9.
On FM, online and digital radio, London's biggest conversation. This is LBC 97.3.